Hey, what's up, everyone? Picture this. You're exploring an abandoned asylum deep in the hills of West Virginia late at night, with just a flashlight. The corridors are pitch black, and out of nowhere you hear slow, dragging footsteps coming toward you from the darkness ahead. But you're standing completely still, and there's no one else in the building with you. Yeah, that's the kind of nightmare we're talking about today on true horror stories from haunted locations that are extremely dangerous. Before I dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we've got way more bone-chilling real stories lined up. Okay, grab something warm, turn the lights down low, and let me tell you about what happened to a group of urban explorers back in the summer of 2022. This is the story of Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky, one of the most infamous abandoned tuberculosis hospitals in America. Thousands died there in the 1920s and 30s. And the place has been empty since 1961. But empty doesn't mean deserted, if you know what I mean. The main guy in this story is Jake Harlan, 28 years old, from Pittsburgh. Jake was one of those adrenaline junkie types, loved sneaking into forbidden places, filming it all for his small YouTube channel called Dark Places USA. He had about 15K subscribers, nothing huge, but enough that his friends Alex, Mia, and Connor always tag along for the adventures. They called themselves a night crew. They'd done old factories, shut down malls, even a couple of supposedly haunted houses. But Waverly Hills was a big one, the crown jewel they'd been planning for months. They drove down from Pittsburgh on a Friday night in July, arrived around midnight. The sanatorium sits on this isolated hill overlooking Louisville, huge and creepy even from a road. 5 stories tall, over 500 rooms, long dark hallways, and that famous body chute, a 500-foot tunnel they used to wheel the dead bodies out so patients wouldn't see how many were dying. Jake parked the van a half-mile away on a dirt pull-off, like always. They hiked into the woods with backpacks full of cameras, flashlights, walkie-talkies, snacks. The usual. The air was thick and humid, cicadas screaming in the trees. As they got closer, the building loomed like a sleeping monster, windows boarded or broken, graffiti everywhere. "Guys, this is it," Jake whispered, grinning into his GoPro. "Waverly Hills. Do not try this at home. We're professionals, kinda." They slipped through a gap in the fence they'd scouted online. First thing that hit them was a smell, mold, decay, something metallic underneath. The silence was heavy, broken only by their footsteps echoing on the concrete. They started on the first floor, exploring the old lobby and nurses' stations. Everything was trashed. Peeling paint, overturned furniture, vines creeping in through cracked windows. Normal abandoned stuff. They joked around, shining lights into dark rooms, calling out anybody home like idiots. But around 1:30 a.m., things got weird. They were on the 3rd floor, checking out the children's ward, when Connor froze. "You hear that?" Everyone stopped. Dead silence, then a faint cough, like an old man's wet, rattling cough coming from down the hall. Alex laughed nervously. Echo, probably. One of us breathing weird. But nobody was breathing like that. They moved toward the sound, lights sweeping the corridor, empty rooms on both sides, doors hanging off hinges. The cough came again, closer this time. Jake's voice dropped. "Okay, that's creepy. Let's keep moving." They headed toward the solarium, a big open room with huge windows where patients used to get sunlight treatment. As they stepped inside, Mia gasped, "Look!" On the dusty floor, in the beam of her flashlight, were fresh footprints, bare feet, small like a child's, leading across the room and disappearing into a side hallway they'd just come from. Connor knelt down. "These weren't here 5 minutes ago. We would have seen them." The group went quiet. Jake tried to play it cool for the camera. Could be other explorers. Places famous. Probably kids sneaking in all the time. But they all knew better. No dust disturbed except those prints. And the air suddenly felt colder, like someone opened a freezer door. They decided to push on to the 4th floor, the haunted floor where most of the activity gets reported. Room 502 is legendary. A nurse supposedly hanged herself there in the 1920s after getting pregnant out of wedlock. People claim to see shadows, hear crying, feel pushed. As they climbed the dark stairwell, their flashlights flickering slightly, batteries were fresh, Alex whispered, "Guys, I swear something just touched my neck." Mia spun around. "Stop messing around." "I'm not." At the top of the stairs, they paused. The hallway stretched forever in both directions, doors lining both sides. Pitch black, except for their lights. Then they heard it, clear as day, a child's laughter, high-pitched, echoing from somewhere down the left corridor. Jake's GoPro caught his face going pale. Okay, that was not wind. They moved slowly toward the sound. Every step echoed too loud. Halfway down, Connor's walkie-talkie crackled to life with static, then a whisper. A woman's voice, "Get out." All four of them heard it. They bolted back toward the stairs, hearts pounding, laughing nervously to cover fear. "Equipment malfunction," Jake said, breathing hard. "Old building interference." But nobody bought it. They regrouped in the solarium again, trying to calm down, sat in a circle, eating chips, telling themselves it was just the atmosphere playing tricks. Classic psychological stuff. Darkness, isolation, expectation of ghosts making you hear things. Around 3 a.m., the witching hour, they decided to check out the body chute. That's when things went from creepy to dangerous. The entrance to the tunnel is outside, down a steep hill behind the building. They hiked around, flashlights cutting through fog that had rolled in. The concrete ramp leading down was overgrown with weeds, graffiti saying things like, "Turn back," and they're still here. The tunnel itself is narrow, sloping downward, rails still on the floor where they rolled the gurneys. Temperature dropped at least 20 degrees the second they stepped inside. Their breath fogged. "This place is insane," Mia whispered. Her voice echoed weirdly. They walked maybe 100 feet in when Jake's light caught something, a wheelchair, old, rusted, sitting sideways in the middle of the tunnel, blocking the path. "That's new," Connor said. "Wasn't in any of the videos I watched." They approached slowly. As Jake reached out to touch it, every flashlight died at once. Total darkness. Panic hit. Batteries. "No way." "Turn on your phone." Phones worked, dim emergency lights. But in that faint glow, they saw shadows moving on the walls. Tall shadows, stretching impossibly long. Then the dragging started. Something heavy being pulled across concrete, coming from deeper in the tunnel. "Run," Jake yelled. They turned and sprinted back up the slope, slipping on damp concrete, screaming. Burst out into the night, air gasping. But Alex wasn't with them. "Alex!" Mia screamed. He'd been right behind Connor. Now gone. They called his name, shining phones down the tunnel. Nothing. Just darkness and that dragging sound, fading away deeper. Jake wanted to go back in, but the girls refused. "We called the cops." "Now!" They hiked back to the van, called 911, told the dispatcher they'd lost a friend inside the abandoned sanatorium. Cops showed up fast. Turns out trespassing calls at Waverly aren't rare, but a missing person is serious. Search teams went in at dawn, found Alex about 300 feet down the body chute, unconscious. He'd fallen or been pushed and hit his head, concussion, broken arm. But that's not the worst part. When he woke up in the hospital 2 days later, he wouldn't talk about what happened, just kept saying, "They didn't want us there, they still need help." The footage from Jake's GoPro survived. Most of it is normal exploration stuff. But in the tunnel, right before the lights died, there's a frame where you can clearly see a figure standing behind them in the darkness. Tall, in an old nurse's uniform, face blurred but watching. At the very end, when they're running out, you hear it, a child's voice, clear as day, "Play with us." Alex never went exploring again. Moved to California. Changed his name. Jake uploaded the video, but took it down after threats and harassment. Mia and Connor stopped talking about it altogether. But the real kicker? Last year, in 2024, another group went in. Same thing happened. One person went missing in the body chute. They found her body weeks later at the bottom, like she'd been dragged a full 500 feet. Cops closed the tunnel permanently now, but people still sneak into the main building. And locals say on quiet nights, if you drive past Waverly Hills around 3 a.m., you can hear coughing from the empty windows, and sometimes laughter. So yeah, some places are dangerous not because of ghosts, but because something there doesn't want to be left alone. Sleep tight, guys. And whatever you do, stay out of Waverly Hills. They sat in the van for what felt like hours, engines off. Windows cracked just enough to let in the humid night air. Nobody spoke at first. The only sound was their breathing, ragged, too loud in a confined space, and the distant wail of sirens as more police units arrived at the sanatorium gates. Jake kept replaying the footage on his camera's tiny screen, frame by frame. There was again that split-second glimpse of the figure in the nurse's uniform standing behind him in the body chute. The face wasn't clear, but the posture was wrong. Too still, head tilted at an angle no living person would hold comfortably. Mia had her knees pulled to her chest in the passenger seat, staring out into the dark woods. "We left him," she whispered finally. "We just ran." Connor, in the back, shook his head slowly. He was right behind me. I swear he was. 1 second he was there, grabbing my sleeve, and then he stopped, throat working like he was trying not to throw up. Jake set the camera down. "We didn't leave him. Something took him. You heard that dragging sound. You saw the wheelchair move on its own." "Don't say that," Mia snapped, voice cracking. "Don't make it sound like..." "Like what?" "Like this place is exactly what everyone says it is." Jake's tone was sharper than he meant. He rubbed his face. "I'm sorry. I don't know what we do now." The cops questioned them separately when the search teams pulled back at dawn. Jake told the truth, mostly left out the part about hearing voices on the walkie, seeing the figure on camera. Said they got separated in the dark, panicked, ran. The officers nodded like they'd heard it 100 times before. One of them, an older guy with tired eyes named Sergeant Ramirez, pulled Jake aside while the others talked to Mia and Connor. "You kids need to understand something," Ramirez said quietly, glancing toward the hill where the sanatorium squatted against the gray sky. "This isn't the first time someone's gone missing in there. Won't be the last, either, if people keep breaking in. But your friend, we found blood on the tunnel floor. Not a lot, but enough." Jake felt the ground tilt under him. Blood. Type matches what he gave his last physical, DMV records. "We're treating this as a recovery now, not rescue." Ramirez paused. Whatever happened to him down there, it happened fast. They weren't allowed to leave Louisville until Alex was found. The three of them checked into a cheap motel off I-65, the kind with flickering neon signs and ice machines that sounded like dying animals. None of them slept. Day 2, the police called. They'd located Alex. He was alive. Barely. They discovered him wedged in a side maintenance shaft off the main tunnel, about 350 feet down. Farther than any of them had gone. Unconscious. Hypothermic, even though it was July. Severe concussion. Broken radius and ulna in his left arm. But alive. No explanation for how he got into the shaft. The opening was barely 2 feet wide, and he'd have had to crawl 20 yards through pitch black to reach it. When they visited him in the hospital that afternoon, Alex looked small in the bed, face bruised purple along one side, eyes unfocused from pain meds, and 4 dripped steadily into his arm. The room smelled like antiseptic in fear. Mia started crying the second she saw him. Connor stood frozen in the doorway. Jake approached slowly. "Hey man," he said softly, "you scared the hell out of us." Alex's gaze drifted toward him. For a long moment he didn't speak. Then, in a voice like dry leaves, "They didn't want you to find me." Jake's skin prickled. "Who?" Alex's eyes closed. "The ones who stayed." The nurse came and then told them visiting time was short. He needed rest. As they filed out, Alex grabbed Jake's wrist with surprising strength. "Don't go back," he rasped. "Whatever you do, promise me." Jake promised. They flew home to Pittsburgh the next day. Alex stayed in Louisville for observation. The footage stayed on Jake's hard drive, unedited, unwatched. For a week, things almost felt normal. Jake went back to his day job at the warehouse. Mia picked up extra shifts at the coffee shop. Connor started seeing a therapist. They didn't talk about Waverly. Group chat went quiet. Then the messages started. First was Mia. She woke up one night around 3:17 a.m. to her phone buzzing on the nightstand. Unknown number. A single photo. The solarium at Waverly Hills, taken from the exact spot they'd sat eating chips. Fresh footprints visible in the dust. For sets like they'd just left. Timestamp on the photo, 3:14 a.m. She showed the others the next morning. They tried tracing the number. Burner phone, dead end. 2 nights later, Connor got a voice message. Same unknown number. 30 seconds of silence. Then faint coughing in the background. The same wet, rattling cough they'd heard in the children's ward. He played it for Jake over phone. Jake's stomach dropped. At the very end of the recording, almost buried under static, a child's voice whispered, "Come back and play." Jake didn't sleep after that. He sat up until sunrise, staring at his bedroom door, listening to the old apartment building settle. Every creak sounded like footsteps in the hallway. Then came the night that broke him. He was alone, girlfriend out of town visiting family. Around 2 a.m., power flickered in his building. Lights dimmed, surge went out completely. Emergency lighting in the hall kicked on, casting everything in sickly red. Jake grabbed his phone, flashlight on, heart already hammering. The apartment felt wrong. Too quiet. Even the traffic noise outside had vanished. He stepped into the living room. The TV was on. Not just on, playing static. Snowy gray screen, volume low. He hadn't touched the remote in days. On the coffee table in front of the couch sat a small, child-sized handprint. In dust. Thick, gray dust that hadn't been there when he went to bed. Jake backed away slowly, phone light shaking in his hand. That's when he noticed the hallway mirror. In the reflection, standing behind him, clear as day, was the nurse from the tunnel footage. Tall, uniform stained dark at the chest, head tilted exactly the same wrong angle. Face still blurred, like bad reception. But she was smiling. Jake spun around. The room was empty. He didn't scream, didn't run, just stood there frozen until the power came back 20 minutes later. The next morning, he called Mia and Connor, told them everything. They met at a diner on the south side, barely touched their coffee. "We need to figure out what this is," Jake said, voice flat, exhausted, because it didn't stay in Kentucky. Mia looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I keep hearing footsteps in my apartment. Bare feet, little ones. They stop right outside my bedroom door." Connor nodded slowly. "Same. And coughing. Always at 3 a.m. They decided to research. Properly this time. Not just ghost tour websites and YouTube videos. Real records. What they found chilled them worse than anything they'd experienced inside the building. Waverly Hills hadn't just treated tuberculosis. In the 1930s, when deaths peaked, sometimes 60 a day, they ran experimental treatments. Things that weren't in any official brochure. Electroshock on children. Lobotomies. Drug trials funded by pharmaceutical companies that no longer existed. Patients who disappeared from records entirely. And the staff, nurses, and orderlies who worked 18-hour shifts, lived on the grounds, slowly went mad from helplessness. Some never left, even after the hospital closed. Bodies found years later in hidden rooms or at the bottom of the body chute. But the worst discovery was recent. In 2019, a maintenance crew doing asbestos removal found something in the sealed-off basement beneath the children's ward. Dozens of small metal boxes, each containing a child's shoe, left shoe only, names scratched inside the leather. No one claimed responsibility. The boxes vanished from evidence lockup 6 months later. Mia closed her laptop slowly. We walked through that ward. We sat in the solarium right above it. Connor stared at his untouched coffee. They think we took something. Jake felt it then, a cold certainty settling in his gut. Or they think we left something behind. That night, Alex called from Louisville. He was out of the hospital, staying with his sister. Voice sounded stronger, but still off. "I need to tell you guys what happened," he said. "In the tunnel." They put him on speaker. "I remember running," Alex began. Then something grabbed my ankle. Not hard, just enough to trip me. I fell, hit my head. When I came to, I was being dragged, slowly, down the slope. Silence on the line. I couldn't scream. My mouth wouldn't work. But I could see them. Kids, barefoot, pale, dragging me by a sheet wrapped around my legs. They didn't look at me, just pulled, like they'd done it 1,000 times. Jake's throat closed. They took me to a room I don't remember seeing on any map. Small, concrete, no windows. There were others there, adults in old uniforms, nurses, doctors. They were waiting. One of them, the tall nurse, knelt down and whispered something in my ear. "What?" Mia asked, barely breathing. Alex's voice dropped to almost nothing. She said, "He'll do. Send the others." Then everything went black again. He paused for a long time. I think they wanted to keep me, trade me for something. But when the search teams came, they let me go. Connor finally spoke. "Trade you for what?" "I don't know," Alex said. "But whatever it is, they're still waiting." The call ended. None of them suggested going to police. They knew how it would sound. Instead, they made a decision. They were going back to Waverly Hills. Not to explore, not to film, to give back whatever they'd taken, even if they didn't know what it was.